Steven has never been poor. So he doesn't have any heartbreaking stories about how he worked as a bartender and unloaded wagons at night. Before getting into the movies, Steven was rich. He had his own Aikido club, which went to various producers and heads of Hollywood studios. He got into a big movie thanks to good friends, or, simply speaking, through connections. Steven flew into the Hollywood Olympus very rapidly. It took him only 4 years and 5 films to get into the list of the highest-paid actors. You are on the channel Memorable Moments, let's go. The first film work for the actor was the action movie Above the Law. The name of his hero from this tape gave the name to the unofficial Nico franchise, which was wildly popular. After the success in cinemas of the film Above the Law, in America there was a real boom in Aikido. The actor spent a long time and painstakingly choosing the script for his second film. He wanted something that didn't exist yet. This is how the film Hard to Kill was born, in which Seagal is killed, after which he goes into a coma for 7 years to gather his strength. The success has been phenomenal. Steven woke up famous. With a budget of $10 million in the States alone, box office was $50 million. After that, 2 more actors' successful work followed. Militants, Marked for Death, and Out for Justice. Each new film of the actor collected box office in cinemas exceeding the previous ones. Only The Rise of a Well-Known Belgian Boy can be compared with the Seagal. Probably it was the ease with which Steven achieved worldwide fame, played a cruel joke with him. Beginning of the End for the actor's fame, became the highest-grossing film Under Siege. After box office figure of $160 million, Steven Seagal broke through a star disease that often leads to sad consequences. It is especially dangerous in the neighborhood with a very difficult character. Seagal had one like that. After hitting the big screens of the film Under Siege, a big fan of the spectacular breaking legs and arms of various scoundrels, suddenly decided to become a great director. Well, talented person should be talented in everything. In this endeavor, Steven was supported by 2 Hollywood studios. 20th Century Fox offered the Seagal to put on the movie Man of Honor. The film was supposed to be typically movie for Seagal. It was about the Italian mafia which accidentally appeared on the path of the raging hero. The film company offered Steven Seagal full creative control, director's chair and the lead role. The only conditions for the tricks were the script and the budget. They provided the first and the second should not have exceeded the mark of $30 million. The other studio that agreed to Seagal's directorial debut was Warner. The offer was similar with one exception: Steven could take any script he liked. Following the success of Under Siege, Warner Studios was keen to see Seagal in Under Siege 2. And knowing this, Steven increased his appetite in every possible way and forced the studio to increase the budget for his directorial debut. When the estimated budget for Steven Seagal's new movie hit the $40 million mark, the talented actor turned the foxes down, agreed to star in Under Siege 2, and chose the script for his directorial debut. The choice fell on the film Invisible Warrior, which later turned into a movie of On Deadly Ground. Filming was a real disaster. The budget of On Deadly Ground during the filming and reshoots has grown to $50 million. After unsuccessful test screenings, the studio required Seagal to cut the movie's run time by 30 minutes. It took 20 minutes for the Seagal to show chipmunks running through the forest, whales jumping out of the water, and so on. That is, 20 minutes of the film, nature thanked Steven Seagal for saving her. The failure was very powerful. With a production budget of $50 million at the box office, the picture only managed to earn $39. Steven Seagal received the Golden Raspberry as the worst director. Perhaps Seagal could have been saved by the next 2 big-budget films to which he was already signed. But the follow-up to On Deadly Ground, the sequel Under Siege, did not live up to expectations. Second planned film, Executive Decision, suddenly ceased to be a Steven Seagal movie. If Seagal had taken seriously The Sound of the Bell over On Deadly Ground, then maybe Under Siege 2 would have been a slightly different film. But glorifying the star, the actor apparently attributed the failure of one film to an accident and took the continuation of his main hit very lightly. In this film, Steven Seagal first began to use a drag belt for the abdomen. The actor swore studios and producers that will gradually get in shape. But this is, how we know, didn't happen. The final point on the status of Seagal as a superstar in the 95th year, put a scandal that broke out in Hollywood. Steven was accused of domestic violence, and next to him allegations of sexual harassment rained down. Kurt Russell, who was also signed to the film executive decision, refused to work with Seagal after similar news. Most likely, if there hadn't been 2 failures in a row behind Steven's back, the studio would have turned a blind eye to the scandal and Kurt Russell. Who knows, maybe Russell himself would have been rolled out of the film with a pipe in his hands. But the stars aligned differently, and Steven Seagal's hero was quickly killed. The role of John Leguizamo in the film executive decision was greatly expanded. This whole snowball has greatly crippled the actor's career. He no longer starred in big-budget films. Other films with his participation went to fail one after another. And 5 years after the release of On Deadly Ground, Steven moved to the small screens. Get Out of which he could only once, in the film by Robert Rodriguez, Machete. Like Van Damme, Steven was killed by an inflated sense of self-importance. Realizing where his career was heading, Steven stopped looking after himself, and by the end of the 90s he no longer fit on the screen. I know that in Steven it is customary not to consider him an actor and in every possible way to scoff at his acting data. But somehow it so happened that looking at him in the frame was much more pleasant than most of the current actors who are considered to be great talents. Charisma is still very important in cinema. And Steven had it. Thanks for your attention, subscribe and stay tuned.